Happy Wednesday, 8:30, time for the BG podcast. This time it's number 87. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Can see you've got a few of the regular faces in there. We got Del Boy, Evening Del Boy, Mr. Celery, Realistic Boxing, Comprehensive Boy, CM Fox, Aaron, the Hitman, Stewie, Broken Nose Media, Rev James, Realistic Boxing, Leon. Hope everyone's doing well. Evening, David, Connor, Jam. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you are watching live or if you're watching this after it's been uploaded to the channel, please hit that thumbs up button nice and early. That will mean we'll get even more people tuning in. Quite a few new subscribers jumping onto the channel recently. And continuing to hit that thumbs up button will ensure we get even more people joining. So thanks a lot to the support from everyone who gives it to this channel. You can see we've got 55 people jumped on already. Lots of people looking forward to this podcast, looking for some aftermath on Chris Eubank Jr. versus George Groves, which is what we are hoping to be serving up to you guys tonight. Clearly, Groves versus Eubank Jr. going to be the main topic of conversation. We're going to be talking the fight itself. We're going to be talking Nassim Hamed's comments. We're talking the future for both guys. We'll also be talking about the Jurgen Bremer, Callum Smith fight being off, as well as some other bits and pieces in the sport of boxing. So should be a very, very busy show. I'm going to start without further ado by bringing in Jet. And Jet, I guess the first question is give us your take on Eubank Groves and how will you remember that fight, mate?
I'll probably remember it as fucking Eubank con job, as as he did against Billy Joe. But I mean, the fight kind of, I wouldn't say it played out how I may have thought it would, but I thought Groves would be boxing on the back foot, trying to tie up Eubank when he came in close. But Groves did, he was very, very neat on the inside, very clever. He would get a few punches off or kind of, hold or swivel across. He was very, very, it was very shrewd. I think he was very, very smart from what he was doing on the inside. Eubank, no footwork. His footwork is atrocious. Transition from outside to inside, his outside game is obviously lacking. It's very, very, very poor. All this hype about, he's half decent from the outside. He's very average from the outside. He's very, very poor, I think, from the outside. And, the guys he's been feeding off, the Arthur Abrahams, the Quinlans, those sort of guys, they're, flattered to deceive him. And maybe I'm guilty of buying into the hype a bit. I did pick Eubank, but I thought he improved enough from the Billy Joe Saunders loss to give George Groves some real problems. But Groves boxed, a very, very, very smart fight. He was tactically acute. The instructions from the corners were polar opposites, miles apart. Shane McGuigan, he was really, really good in the corner. He was actually, very sharp, very aware of what was going on, giving precise instructions to George Groves. George Groves executed the game plan very well. And, what you have to give credit for is both guys showing a lot of heart, a lot of determination in the fight. Eubank has a very, very good chin. Yeah, we've got to acknowledge that and accept that. I know people are saying, well, he got dropped or, the ref didn't really call it and that sort of stuff. I did think maybe he got dropped at least once, but he's got a heart of a lion and he's got a fantastic chin. And George Groves, obviously, he's got some serious skills and maybe this tournament has brought out the best in him and hopefully can make a few quid later, in his latter stage in his career, maybe move up to light heavyweight, get 1-2 big paydays there if possible, and ride off into the sunset. But he's still got something to offer. Hopefully his shoulder actually heals very well, and we get to see him in the World Boxing Super Series final.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate it was somewhere in the middle. But if I said to you, was this more a case of Groves performing excellently or Eubank performing terribly, where would you come down on that?
It's a bit difficult. I think it's more to do with Groves performing very well, but at the same time, Eubank was pathetic. To be honest, I think he was absolutely shit. To be honest, I'm not trying to like slate the guy's performance like that, but boxing fundamentals, boxing 101. He's no jab, no jab at all. Terrible footwork. I don't know. I don't know what Eubank Senior, Ronnie Davis. I don't know if he's listening to them or he's decided to do his own thing. I don't know what's going on, and in that Eubank Jr team. But if they're trying to inflate his ego or something like that, I don't know. But all I know is that Eubank was pretty shit, and Groves did what he needed to do. He done well. I wouldn't say he boxed excellently, but I have seen Groves box, very, very, very good against the guys like, the likes of James DeGale. That was a very, very close fight, but he boxed very well there. I think the first Carl Froch fight until the dubious stoppage, I think he was very good. He was actually, that was probably one of his best performances, to be honest, that I've seen George Groves in his career. But those are the two standouts for me in George Groves' career, and I think this is up there with standout performances for the Saint. But Eubank could have done a lot more in there, and to think he actually said he thought he won the fight is embarrassing. He should hang his head in shame, to be honest. And I'm actually glad that Eubank Senior, for all of his antics before and after the fight, he's actually come out and said, I think that was the right decision. And you have to give him some credit, whether or not you like him or hate him. Eubank Senior, and he's a Marmite character just like Junior, and you got to give him the credit and say, yeah, George Groves deserved to win, and Junior needs to go back, and he really needs to get a trainer that he's going to listen to, and he's going to work on certain stuff. So he's got a lot to work on. He showed he can somewhat compete at that level, somewhat. But he needs to make real fundamental changes, and I don't know if he can make them at 28 years old now.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the fact that Junior believed he won the fight. I think that shows
that's bullshit, man. I'll be honest.
poor reading of a fight from him, isn't it? But I guess when you're in the moment and you're in war. But my question is, isn't that an indicator of the worst corner work in recent boxing history from Senior? That he's allowed his fighter to finish that fight thinking he's won. I mean, surely, Jet, if that was you and I haven't been professional boxing cornermen, but surely if we were in that corner from round 2, round 3, you'd be saying, you're losing this fight, you're getting schooled.
Yeah, I mean, the corner work from, as you said, the corner work for Eubank Jr.'s team was fucking appalling, to be honest. I don't want to, I don't think we want to bang on about it, but it was miles apart. You look at that corner work, and I've watched, a fair few YouTubers, but mostly you Ultra Tech, the main guys. And I was watching your sort of post-fight analysis and that sort of stuff. And even you were saying that the corner work was miles apart. Shane McGuigan, very clear, very precise, very accurate. George Groves carried out the game plan to a T. Eubank has gone in there. I don't know what he's trying to do to George Groves. I don't know what he's trying to achieve in the ring. We know that when Eubank gets on the inside, he's actually a very, very good fighter. He's a handful on the inside. But the transition from the outside to the inside was non-existent. It was. I don't know if it was George Groves because he was feinting a lot. He was giving Eubank Jr. a lot of different angles. So maybe that threw him off. But if you're Eubank, you've got to expect that. You can't have a guy that's going to stand in front of you and let you, take, I don't know, 100 shots in however many seconds Eubank Jr. throws. It doesn't make any sense. It was look, I don't want to discredit the guy. He came in, he gave in a real go, but the corner work was awful. It was absolutely shit. Like, Eubank Senior has to take a lot of flack for that because he's obviously said, how much do you want this? How much do you want to win? But that's not telling Junior how to go out and execute, a strategy to actually nullify George Groves' strengths in the fight. And George Groves is getting better and better in the fight. He's becoming more composed, and he's growing into the fight. Eubank Jr. is tentative. He's not throwing a jab. He can't move his feet. His feet are like in cement. It was it was one of the worst corner works I've seen in a very long time. It's up there with some of Joe Gallagher's work. It's up there with some of Tony Sims' work. It was real bad stuff. And at 28, can Eubank, improve significantly to beat the likes of, George Groves possibly, or Ramirez, or could he go up to light heavyweight and beat Sergei Kovalev? I can't see it. I just cannot see it. Could he go back down to middleweight and beat a Billy Joe? Hell no on that performance. Billy Joe would probably 12-0 him on that performance. Billy Joe's gone better, and Eubank has stagnated and plateaued. So yeah, it was miles apart and leagues apart. Different gravy, mate. Absolute different gravy.
Spot on. Jet, my final question was going to be, where do both guys go from here? You've kind of touched on it a little bit with Eubank, but I mean, in terms of weight class, if you were in charge of him, what weight class would you be targeting him at? And I guess even more importantly, what do you think happens with Groves? Do you think they delay the final for him? I certainly hope so.
With Groves, I hope they, as you said, I hope they delay the final, because that performance alone deserves, the tournament producers and the Sowlands, whoever hosts it, they should look at the performance and go, you know what, he's really done well in this fight. It was just sort of a freak injury in the final round with about 30-40 seconds to go, and they should kind of wait for the prognosis on Groves and see how he recovers, how long the process is, and that sort of stuff. I think the final's supposed to be in the first week of June or something like that.
Yeah.
If they can push it back maybe a few weeks and hopefully can get a full training camp in and a full recovery in, that would be beneficial. But I'd expect, if George Groves is fully fit and fully healthy, I'd expect him to win the tournament and maybe go up to light heavyweight. I don't think he has anything to prove in the weight class, and I think that the weight cut is significant for him. He's a very, very big guy. He's billed at 5'11" half or something like that. He looks about 6'1". I'm about 6'2", 6'3", and he looks just a bit smaller than me. So I would hope he could try and compete at light heavyweight and be a bit more healthy there. But I think this tournament's made him a fair few quid, and well done to him. More power to him. Hopefully he's fit for the final and raring to go. Eubank, I don't really care to see the guy fight again, to be honest, unless he gets schooled by someone. I would say stay at super middle, to be honest. He's called out Caleb Truax, I think, in the post-fight interview, if I'm correct, something like that. So I think that's a winnable fight for Eubank. And, maybe fight James DeGale in a big unification. I know James DeGale's got a rematch with Caleb Truax. So, maybe if you get the fight before DeGale, or you can fight DeGale for the IBF and get some good money, maybe that's the way forward. But I don't see him winning a legitimate world title at middle, super middle, or light heavyweight, to be honest. Those three divisions are kind of preoccupied at the moment. And, it's difficult for me to see Eubank actually troubling the top guys in the division, especially with his significant deficiencies in his game.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you for that, Jet. We'll bring you back in due course. 117 of you watching live, please continue to hit the thumbs up button if you're joining with us tonight, which will hopefully get even more people joining as we continue throughout the course of the show. As I've been speaking to Jet, I can see the panel has started to fill up. We've got Irish Tom who's joined, Surrey has joined. I've spoken to Paul in the last 10 minutes. Unfortunately, he's not able to jump on tonight. But we have a fairly full panel, so we're good to go. Let me bring in Surrey next. Surrey, how are you getting on?
Hello, Tom. Yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Still recovering from the weekend, to be honest with you. But yeah, were you surprised how the fight broke down, Surrey?
You know what, Tom? I'm gonna be brutally honest here. I'm not gonna, I have no reason to lie or kind of twist my words here. Everything that I said last week is there to be viewed for however long you keep it on the channel. So I can't go back and change anything, and nor would I, to be fair. First of all, I want to give full credit to Jay, the only guy on the panel who actually had the balls to pick one guy in full confidence and stick with it, and actually give every valid reason. So Jay, full credit to you, mate. I did get on a bit late, so I don't know if he's already had his little gloat about his pick, but with all due respect, he deserves every bit of credit he gets for that. So that's that. And regarding the fight, I'm gonna be very honest with you. All day I was kind of building up to the fight. So we went to watch. I don't know if you've seen Black Panther. Went to watch that. Came back. Ordered the fight. Sat down with my mum and dad, and they were hyped for it as well. Mum was like, "Oh, Eubank, this is Eubank's son. I've seen him fight a few times. He's really good." Oh yeah, we're gonna find out tonight how good he is. Yeah, I said we're gonna find out tonight. And I said to my dad, I go, just watch the fight. I said it's all about how he reacts to the first jab. Yeah. And as soon as he got hit with the first jab, I put my hand in my on my head. I just knew. I said, "That's it." I go, "He's losing this fight." And my dad looked at me and he goes, "He didn't react very well, did he?" I go, "No." Yeah. I just knew. I'm not even joking. In that moment, I said, "That's what he's going to lose the fight." He came forward in a straight line. He stood there flat-footed, and he did absolutely fuck all. Pardon my language. That is the only way I can put it. No disrespect to the guy for staying in there for 12 rounds and taking the beating he took and not getting knocked out. That's fine. The Warriors code and the way his dad always talks about, I took beatings like a man, and that's what it's about. Fine, you did. Respect for him on that front. No boxing fundamentals whatsoever. No movement was incorrect. He just followed George Groves around the ring, threw jabs from a mile away, which clearly weren't going to land. And there's another thing about us coming on here as guys who are sitting on the couch at home. We're not taking the punches. That's fine, but we do to an extent know what we're talking about. That's why we do this podcast, and then people obviously tune in because they like hearing what we've got to say. And he threw his jab from a mile out. He's not known for his jab anyway, which is fine. But I would love to have seen something different from Chris, but that's not what we were expecting. We all expected him to go out there and make it tough, get him on the ropes, and work on him. He didn't have that confidence. To me, it seems like he froze and choked again, similar to the Billy Joe Saunders fight. However, that was his first 12-round fight, so there's always going to be that understanding and that level of we can kind of not cut what's the word? We can't really attack him too much for that because that was an experience thing. 3.5 years on, it's not an experience thing now. It's getting to a point where this is getting ridiculous, to the point where he did absolutely fuck all. And again, it winds me up to think that we all kind of thought Eubank was going to do it, but we all thought for different reasons. That's the thing. We all had our own different reasoning as to why. I mean, the lack of a jab and the lack of any real commitment. He did not commit to fighting a certain way. He just tried to come forward and see if he could do something. And finally, we've established he's got a chin. He took some big shots. I do believe there were 1 or 2 knockdowns in there which the referee didn't give, if I'm honest. Watching the fight back from different angles, you do see his, he did get hit on the way down on one of his slips. And if Carl Frampton got hit by that Horatio Garcia guy on the way down on a slip and got called a knockdown, then this should have been treated the same. That is technically in the rules of boxing. If you've slipped and you're getting hit on the way down, it's classed as a knockdown, isn't it? So either way, it should have been called a knockdown. For me, I scored the fight live as it was. Could not argue anything more than 10-2. I couldn't even give him a 9-3. And I was looking for reasons to try and give him a round, but that isn't the way you should score it. So I scored it 10-2. Even in the last round, I didn't realize the shoulder had popped out until after the fight. Because obviously from that angle, we couldn't really see anything. And if I'm honest, I just didn't gather that. So I thought, oh my God, he's going to do it. He's actually going to get to the final of the worst performance of the tournament. The most lopsided performance of a fight that we thought was going to be competitive. What it comes down to is the fact that he's not been taught the basic fundamentals of boxing. He's got his dad there just gassing him up that he's this, he's that, he's my son, genetics. Fair enough, he's a committed guy, he stays in shape year round. He's clearly a gifted and talented young man. The issue is he needs to be nurtured and taught about how to do the basics now to find his way in a fight, because not every single fight is going to be a fight where you can go forward on a Dmitry Shudanov or a Tony Jetta or a Spike O'Sullivan, because that's not world level. This is fringe level, or even less than that, if anything. And Eubank Jr. showed us on Saturday he is not good enough to compete with the top 5 or 6 guys. And let's just say hypothetically, Billy Joe Saunders, we saw what he did on his night against Lemieux. That was shut out 12-0 and possibly could have even stopped him a few times. He caught him big shots that he could have probably jumped on Lemieux and gotten out of there, but he chose to box. Can you imagine Chris Eubank Jr. versus David Lemieux? He would not be picking with any confidence if Chris Eubank Jr. got in there and went toe-to-toe with David Lemieux. If anything, we're probably all going to lean towards David Lemieux because the power piece. Eubank Jr.'s got the speed and the athleticism, but against a guy who stands in front of him, he looks good. But we can't guarantee against Lemieux that he would. Or if he gets caught with a big shot, we don't know if his chin's that good yet. You get caught clean repeatedly by big punches. But I suppose Groves did do that again. But a lot of it comes down to how much Chris Eubank didn't do for me. That's not to take away from George Groves. He did exactly what he should have done. Yeah, and brilliant performance from that perspective, but I don't look at it as a, you know, on Twitter I'm saying, oh my God, an absolute masterclass from George Groves. It's not to take away from performance. I just don't think that was the best George Groves has ever seen. In recent years, it's one of the better and more complete performances, I'd say, where he didn't get drawn into a war. As soon as Chris Eubank had a chance to get in the inside, headlock, push down on him, you know, hold him, and that's it. He shut him down completely. So in that regard, he fought the correct fight for the guy he was dealing with, and like I said, full credit to him for that. But again, it wasn't the best George Groves I've seen in a long while or anything like that. But he did perform well. He caught him with big power shots, kept him on the end of the jab, and there's nothing you can take away from George Groves. Like I was saying last week, my pick with Eubank was based on the fact that I genuinely thought he was going to get on the inside and do some damage to George Groves, and George Groves would tire. However, George Groves, again, as soon as the fight started, he was on his toes. He's moving a lot. He looked a bit more dynamic compared to what he looked in his last 2 or 3 performances for me. I can't comment on anyone else, but I did believe that he had a bit more bounce in his step. I think George Groves knew, regardless of the build-up and what he said about, oh, you know, this is going to be an easy fight, blah, blah. In his head, there had to have been that fear of, okay, I need to fight a certain fight to win this fight. If I lose, I've got 4 losses, and it's going to be very hard to come back. Of course, there's going to be that fear in his head. And of course, Shane would have said that after cameras to him, look, you've got to make sure you shut this guy down early, make him respect your power, make him, you know, deter him, get him out of that mindset early on where he thinks he's going to jump in on you. Because that was clearly the mentality that Eubank and Eubank Senior had, that, you know, you can't deal with it, and the referee needs to be careful, and, you know, all this shit they were spewing the whole weekend before that. And like I said, it's absolute disgrace from Eubank in terms of a boxing performance. I've always said, and I've said it on Twitter a million times, you know, if anyone goes back and checks my tweets, I've said this: Eubank is not a good boxer whatsoever. He's a brilliant fighter, but he will only ever win if you fight with him. But Groves didn't fight. He boxed him. He gave him a boxing lesson on a level that Eubank has never been. And even when he fought Billy Joe Saunders, that, bear in mind, lads, this wasn't a world level fight. These guys were fighting for the British Commonwealth, or was it European Commonwealth or British Commonwealth back in 2014? It was British Commonwealth, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was. So yeah. They were, you know, world level of fighters at that point, were they?
No, it was British. Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah, British.
It was Commonwealth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can you know, be forgiven to forget that the fact that these guys are still on a British and Commonwealth level, so they're on a European level. They weren't on world level when they fought the first time. But there's literally no excuse for him to have had 39 months on from that fight to not have improved in some of those you know, areas. And Tom, you've always said in all your videos, and obviously I'm an avid, you know, viewer of your videos, and I've followed you for years. So you've always said in your videos, we know Chris Eubank is a very improved fighter, but is he improved in those areas? And you've always said that in pretty much every video you've done on him. And we've spoken about the Billy Joe Saunders fight. You've literally always said we need to find out, has he improved in those areas? Yes, he's improved. Yes, he's looked good, but clearly he has not improved in those areas. George Groves wasn't necessarily, you know, overly fleet-footed, but he moved just enough and kept just enough length between him and Eubank to make it that type of fight. And he made it I'd say a relatively easy night. I'm not saying that it was an easy fight. He just made relatively easy work of a guy who can be very difficult. But the issue is, like I said, he got caught with some big shots. He's got a good poker face. He took them well, and he knows how to take a beating, Eubank. And then obviously from the stories we've heard about his, you know, come up in boxing, where his dad threw him in the ring with the Cuban and made him take a beating, you know, and whatnot, and, you know, to see has he got what it takes. He knows the way that he's built himself up, Chris Eubank Jr. and Senior. He can't go in there and take a beating and quit. The way he's ridiculed Kell Brook and other fighters, you know, quitting or whatnot, or stopping and whatnot, he cannot go in there and do that. So he had to take his beating like a man, and he did. So full respect for that. I think the cut was an issue for him as well. I don't think necessarily from a viewpoint of dabbing the eye and getting blood in the eye. I think a psychological factor, that cut in the biggest fight of your career against a bigger, stronger guy, getting cut like that, and the blood, you know, it can affect you, can't it, from a mental and also just a point of view of, you know, how bad is the cut and whatnot. Eubank's not a machine, as much as they'd love to make you think that. He's a human being. He's got emotions. He's going to feel some sort of, you know, stress in his mind with that cut. No one can tell me otherwise. I know I'm not a boxer, but that's the reality of the situation. And like I said, for me, Eubank just did not do anything that he set out to do in the fight. But a lot of that is down to George Groves and the fact that he did everything he was supposed to do and what we should have all expected him to do. And we did, to be fair, a lot of us did kind of say, if George Groves does these things, then he should win this fight. But I feel like I can't speak for all of us lads on the panel that did pick Eubank, but looking back on it now, and hindsight is a beautiful thing. There's no reason why we shouldn't have picked George Groves. Of course, we all picked whatever we thought at the time. I picked Eubank based on the fact that I thought he was going to be able to get on the inside based on other guys. But maybe I should stick to the old style make fights thing, because evidently he couldn't do it. And I think George Groves made sure that he didn't let him get any sort of success on the inside. And even when he did, he was missing wildly, ringing shots over his head. And George Groves put on a very, very good performance for the George Groves we've got right now. Like I said, he's not the same. He's still clearly a world-level operator, and he's still got a lot to give. And he was the favourite when the tournament was announced. And I think as long as his injury doesn't hinder him, then for me, he's a favourite to win. I think he'll beat Callum Smith. Should Callum Smith make it to the final? Not saying it's an easy fight. He's a huge guy. He's arguably a light heavyweight anyway. But I think he's got enough experience and again enough of an old man vibe about him, veteran vibe, where he can dog out a tough fight for Callum Smith and to win the Ali Trophy and that WBC diamond belt, whatever. But yeah, for me, Eubank, what does he do now? Does he stay at super middle? Does he go down? I appreciate Tommy. You said that you think it'll be hard for him to go back down in terms of from a physical weight point of view, and yes, the a few times. I think both are open to him. I'd like to see him stay at super middle. I'd like to see him he hasn't got a trainer right now, regardless of what rank he's been in, that being there. He needs to understand and take.
Sorry, mate. The signal is gone completely in the last 15, 20 seconds.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Keep going, mate.
Pardon me. Sorry.
That's right.
I was saying that he needs to kind of take this ridicule and critique that is on social media for the last 2 or 3 months, as long as he's going to be on there, he's going to be getting ridiculed for a long time, I think. Sorry, can you still hear me?
It's in and out at the minute. It's
Tom.
Yeah. Hello, mate. It's it sounds like you're going through a tunnel or something.
What about now?
That sounds better.
Pardon me. Yeah. So apologies for anyone listening. Sorry. So as I was saying, I think he needs to obviously look. He had his chance with Adam Booth. Whatever happened there, we're never going to know. He needs that type of trainer, but I think he should go to America to get away from his comforts here. I think he needs to get with someone like a Virgil Hunter or an Andre Rozier type of guy who is really going to break down the little nuances of a fight and be able to say to him, look, this is what you need to do, son. Listen to me. And he needs to have that sort of respect that you see Daniel Jacobs has for Andre Rozier, calls him sir, the same way Virgil Hunter had with Andre Ward. I'm not saying calling someone sir is going to make you respect them. I'm just saying he needs to be with someone who's going to give him that type of student and master type mentality. His dad's not giving him that. His dad is just saying, you're this, you're that, you've got this, you've got that. Get in there, volume, and you've won the fight. That's not how it works. You've got to have different levels and different ways of fighting against different people, as we all know. I think even, obviously, Emmanuel Stewart isn't around, but that's the type of trainer he needs to get with. Someone who's going to give him that change in his style and teach him different ways to win a fight and how to, in these sort of fights, you need to have a plan A, B, through to Z, because it's that type of an elite level matchup with someone like George Groves who can brawl when he wants to, can box as well. So it's one of those things that he just needs to get a real trainer. His dad needs to step aside, put his ego aside, forget trying to say we're different and we're going to do it our way. That's fine. Promotionally, you can do what you like and you can hijack the promotional side of things. Let your son train with a proper trainer who knows what he's talking about. And then we'll see where Chris Eubank goes from there. I still think he's a world level fighter. I just don't think he's elite at this point. How long has he got? We'll never know. But I think he needs to get with a real trainer in America and come again, and we'll take it from there. I'm not willing to just write the guy off. I think he's got something to give to the sport, definitely. I don't think Prince Asim's words were very harsh, but I get where he was coming from. But I think Eubank still got something that he can offer, and a lot of that. And I think he's still a very exciting fighter, considering the way he does fight. I think he's got a lot of good performances in him. He just needs to get with the right trainer to add things to his game. He needs to add a jab, as we've all said. He needs to add some footwork. He needs to add a stronger back foot game, and also just generally learn just the fundamentals of the boxing. And he was really bad the way he performed. Not questioning his heart. He stayed in there, took a beating. Just very, very uninspiring. And that, from what we had, the expectations we had of the fight, let's all be very honest, that was a letdown from the expectations we had. But it was still good in regards to seeing two big names like that in the ring, and the hype around the fight. But it was an anticlimax overall. So for me, like I said, I scored it 10-2. Groves won pretty comfortably from that point of view. And Eubank needs to really, really consider what he wants to do next. I don't think he needs to retire, but he needs to seriously look at getting with a proper trainer and then taking it from there.
Good stuff. Cheers for that, Surrey. We'll bring you back in a minute, mate. Let me bring in Irish Tom. Irish, give us a sound check, mate.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, mate. What happened?
What do you mean?
in the fight?
Well, I don't know, lads. This must have been, for me, this was like the perfect weekend. You remember I thought I put a load of money on Chris Eubank at 5-4. When I went and checked my accounts, it turned out I never put the bet on. So that that was classic. So I hadn't put the money on. Then George Groves beats Eubank, which is brilliant. And he makes all the Eubanks looks like cunts. And then George Groves goes and dislocates his shoulder. So it's like absolutely the perfect weekend.
I'm not sure how well that's going to go down with the Boxing Gossip faithful, that you're now claiming you never placed a bet you've been talking about for literally months.
I know. I was going, Jesus, I must go and check my gambling account. I was like, where the fuck is that bet gone? And I no settled bet. It was fucking amazing. I must have just totally thought I'd done it. And then I even wrote in my spreadsheet where I put down my bets, but I never actually committed. Fucking fantastic.
Are you surprised how ineffective Junior was?
Oh God, I was shocked. Like, I must admit, I was shocked at how pathetic he looked in those first 4 or 5 rounds. Like, you know, say he jumped up levels to fight Billy Joe Saunders, right? And he showed that there was big gaping holes in his game. And it just looks like for the last 3 years or 4 years or whatever it was, he hasn't done anything to improve on them. There was some guy who does you know, these they slow down the boxing and they do you know, a look at a fight and in particular talk about the tactics for some fellas. What do they call that? Breakdown, kind of like with the video.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was watching it during the week beforehand of the Avni Yildirim fight, and the guy was saying, like, you know, Eubank, he just punches, he doesn't feint, and he doesn't like set up his stuff. And I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe you're right. And then like when I was watching that fight, I was going like, he didn't feint. Like feinting is like boxing 101. You know what I mean? It's like fucking boxing 101. He didn't do any feints. His jab was terrible. Like Jamie Cox landed his jab repeatedly on George Groves. Jamie Cox showed an infinitely better jab. I was just so surprised. It's like if you were going to think about like what style would actually match Junior's physical attributes, I would design him as a pressure attacking fighter, you know? And he doesn't have any idea of the footwork necessary to get in past the jab. He was just like bar lunging with a big thing or throwing wild shots. It was, to be honest with you, it was fucking rudimentary mistakes. And it shows that Junior has learned nothing from his previous errors. And, you know, I think we will never see him learn them. I don't think he'll ever improve beyond what he is. People like give out about Chris Eubank Sr. Like, I don't like Chris Eubank Sr. I think he's a wanker, right? I find him amusing, but I think he's a wanker. But like people like are making out like, you know, that it's Senior's fault that Junior hasn't had, like, say, good coaching. But I just think somebody like Chris Eubank Jr. is uncoachable to a certain extent. Like, people have to remember that they went over to the Mayweathers and stuff like that. Like, I don't think Chris Eubank Sr. doesn't want him to have a coach. I think that Eubank Jr. won't basically take to coaching, and he has to do it his own way. You know, so I think an awful lot of slagging that's going on about Chris Eubank Sr. being the problem, I think that's kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. To me, the problem is a lot of that slagging that goes on about him is promoters, because they don't like business-wise that Eubank Sr. has done good for his son. They managed to break the duopoly in the British boxing. But like, when it, you know, it's kind of the frustrating thing, because, like, you know, the actual qualities that make Chris Eubank Jr. good are the same qualities that will stop him from being from also being good. I just think he's a flawed fighter and he'll never get over it.
Do you think Junior can ever win a well-regarded world title, Tom? Or do you think at 28 years of age, the flaws in his game are now so available for all to see that boxers will just know how to deal with him in future at the elite level.
Yeah, but not every world champion is a boxer.
No.
You know? So he can easily pick up on, and, you know, like, say, for example, if he was to fight Caleb Truax, you know, he could win that. You know, there's always, it's quite normal in a weight division, there'll be somebody who's a shit champion, you know, and he could easily pick up one of them against an opponent that's been matched well for him. But, you know, it says a lot about Chris Eubank Jr. that in the post-fight interviews, he was calling out Caleb Truax. And this is a fella who was 1 to 100 on. You know, Caleb Truax is probably is he a C+ fighter?
Yeah.
You know, Team Groves is saying I should give Groves some credit. And I think so. Yeah, I think it's Groves' best performance since Froch won. And I think he fought a good fight and he showed good heart. But honestly, I think like that any kind of reasonably top level boxer will find it an easy night against Eubank Jr. I think George Groves won 10-2. And I think if it wasn't for dislocating his shoulder, he would have won 11-1. And even in the 11th round with a dislocated shoulder, he was the one landing what looked like the harder shots. Chris Eubank landed like flush on George Groves a number of times with what looked like haymakers. And, you know, George Groves wasn't budged, really. You know, I think that Groves did, you know, a good fight. But it's just more, I think the fight is more about how inept Junior is at fighting. Like, Junior is good if a fella is coming on to him. But, like, what the hell is that going to do for you at a top level? You know, it's just... you know, what makes him good is what makes him bad. So I don't think he'll ever amount to much more than what would you make Chris Eubank Jr.? Is he a top 20 super middleweight? A top 15? Yeah, that's kind of what he is. And maybe at middleweight, he might be a top 10 middleweight. You know, and that's about it.
What about George Groves, Tom? Obviously, the shoulder injury. May have to have the final rescheduled. Obviously, we've got this Jürgen Bremer withdrawal this weekend as well. That's slightly unfortunate. You know, all roads are kind of leading to George Groves versus Callum Smith. What's your take on Groves? You know, with that injury, is that something you'd be very concerned about? You know, when Groves is used to being the bigger man in the ring, will that be something that he'll have to adapt fighting a guy like Callum Smith potentially?
Look, if his arm is all right, he beats Callum Smith easy. I just think that's easy work. Look at the difficulty that Callum Smith had with the other fella, the Swedish guy. What was his name?
Erik Skoglund.
Erik Skoglund, who, you know, is a Euro level fighter at best. You know, I think it's an easy fight for George Groves if he's right. I'm really annoyed that Bremer pulled out. I thought Bremer was going to school Callum Smith.
Same.
I thought that was... I was just looking, the 5-1 bet. I was just waiting to put the money on. You know, I just couldn't believe the price. And,
you know, and then I went in again, 11-1 on points.
Yeah, 11-1 on points. You know, that is just an amazing price. In Germany, against Callum Smith, who has fought nobody and their dog.
I know. It's very, very disappointing. Tom, you and I have talked about the World Boxing Super Series a number of times. We've both been big fans of it. I did say at the start of the tournament, one of my bigger worries about tournament boxing is that due to the format, you do get problems with injuries. Groves having that substantial injury, Bremer being ruled out, you know, Callum Smith looking like he'll get to the final by beating Skoglund and a kickboxer. Does it slightly take the shine off things?
It does a bit, but you know, like if we take the whole two divisions together, like I think the final will be put back for George Groves. I cannot see them having not George Groves in there because he's the star now. He's going to be the star. So, but like I think if they should put it back for Bremer too. I just think putting in that guy is a bit of a joke. Like, it's going to be the first season is going to be teething problems. They're going to see what works and what doesn't work. You know, next year they're talking about doing 3 different competitions. Would be fucking amazing, because that means there would essentially be, you know, the first time there'll be 12 weeks of boxing, which will mean there'll be boxing there'll be one every week pretty much until the next round. You know, it'll pretty much go for 3 months solid, and by the time the first ones have finished, they'll just be on to the second ones, which would be absolutely amazing. But
and a light heavyweight tournament, Tom. I mean, that would be pretty special if the right fighters were involved.
Yeah, like and it seems to be like they're talking about light heavyweight and lightweight. They'd be 2 great divisions. If you get Mikey Garcia in there because he's a free agent, you know, you get Linares, you probably get Lomachenko in there too. You might, I don't know, but like that'd be amazing. I think I hope they don't fuck it up, but you know, it's the best thing to happen for boxing, you know, in a good while. A pity it didn't go on free TV, more of it, and a pity it didn't get taken up in the United States, because some of these cards we get given up, you know, like where they have one of the Charlos fighting somebody you don't know and this kind of shit, you know, headlining, and it's, you know, or Danny fucking Garcia versus you know, a corpse. Like, they should not be headlining stuff. The WBSS is the best thing to happen. Well, since the PBC didn't work, but it's definitely one of the best things to happen in boxing in ages.
Good stuff, Tom. Thank you. It's the time that the chat has been waiting for. 150 people watching live. So we've had a new subscriber jump on during the show. We've had 54 of you hit a thumbs up. Please continue to do that. Let's bring in Jay. Jay, congratulations on your pick. The floor is yours, sir.
Put me on at prime time. That's what I like. I've had a good positive response off Twitter. You know, Team Groves always there from the start. Mr. Greaves, etc., etc. Don't like to say I told you so, but kind of did. But in all seriousness, going back to what we said last week, the things did play out, and what you said, Tom, and you agreed with me, was that would Chris Eubank have a plan B? And he didn't. He didn't have a plan B. He
didn't even have a plan A, Jay. He didn't even have a plan A.
The winner's talking here. Just give it a rest for a second, will you? So
you're dumb.
Basically, yeah, he didn't have a plan B, but I kind of knew he wouldn't have a plan B. And Irish said about you don't blame his dad. I blame his dad, because his dad is tracking his career, how he thinks it should go, the opponents that he should be fighting, and the opponents that he fought were not teaching him anything, and they've not taught him anything. He's fought 2 opponents that have good movement, and this is what happens. He loses. And I went on about it. The 3 previous opponents that he had were people that stood in front of him, that had no movement, that were like punching bags, which he likes to do on social media and show how many combinations he can put together. I also said the first time, and Sherry again, when he said that when he got hit with the jab the first time, it's true. What I said, what's Eubank going to do when he gets hit with a jab and gets hit with that right hand? How's he going to react? How's he going to work around that? How's he going to think about what he's going to do next? Again, no plan B. He fights one way. His fundamentals are terrible. They're terrible. He fights square on. He swings for the hills. I mean, what Billy Joe Saunders did with Lemieux when he missed the shot and he looked out to the crowd. Groves could have done that 3 or 4 times. He should have done it to make him look even more foolish. The guy is not. I can see why everyone, a lot of people buy into the hype. But what Chris Eubank does is that he shows these shots of him putting 15, 20 combination punches, hitting the bag, hitting these pads, but they're good highlights, and people watch the highlights and think, God, this guy's amazing. He's non-stop. He's an athlete, but he only fights one way. He doesn't know. And he's had 25 amateur fights where he obviously didn't learn a lot, didn't come up through the British system, and his career has been carefully maneuvered in the right direction. And something Eddie Hearn said today in an interview, saying the guy is quite outstanding in a sense, because he's managed to make so much money, got world title fights from basically doing nothing, from not showing anything to make, you know, you think that he's an exceptional fighter, exceptional technical fighter, because he's not. He likes to fight on the inside. He's got no jab. His footwork is awful. Do you know what I mean? So when that barrier comes up, he doesn't know what to do, and that's why he does need a trainer. He needs someone to talk to him, and he's got yes men around him. I watched the documentary about the day after, and when he was in the change room, and he said to some guy, he said, how did you think? How do you think I did? And he went, oh, it was a good fight. It was a good fight. No one, bar his dad, but no one around there was going, and even his dad wasn't 100% committing to it, but no one was going, nah, you were shit. What the fuck were you doing? You know, what did we just see from you out there? No one said it. Everyone's a yes man. And that's obviously what he likes. And when Prince Naseem, who was the highlight of the whole occasion, he said that you know, he's just he should retire. Retires, well, that's up to him. But it's just that he's not good enough to be at world level, and he'll never be good enough. He's 28, 29. You can't. He's got to go back 9 years and start learning fundamentals of boxing, which you can't teach him now. It's going to be very, very difficult, because he fights one way, and that's how he's had success, and that's what he's gone through his career doing. So to strip him back down again and to start all over again, it will be almost impossible. It will be almost impossible to go back to that elite level. There you go.
Definitely. Jay, I'll ask you a bit more about the boxing in a second, but before I do, can I just get your take on Irish Tom now claiming that he never placed the bet he referred to at least 50 times?
I mean, I've had some trolling off Irish Tom this week, which has not been to his usual standard, to be honest with you. It's been pretty poor, correcting my spelling, which when someone does that on Twitter, they're running out of ideas when they start correcting spelling, playing on words, call me a masturbator, a sex change. I mean, the most outlandish things you've ever heard.
All of which are true. All of which are true.
From someone whose record with the big fights is, 2-2 on the negative. I'm just waiting for the third. I'm quite looking forward to that. I'm just wondering which one he's going to go with. But Irish Tom, as I said before, if you need a little bit of help with the picks, just look to me and I could probably help you out there. But his trolling has been pretty poor, and to say that he actually didn't bet on the fight in the end, I mean, it's just, if your viewers believe that, then guys, you know what I mean, you're watching the wrong podcast. Our viewers are intelligent people, and they can see through the bullshit. But that's all I got to say about that.
All I would say, Jay, is that you're a bum. And the other thing is
keep talking. Go on, keep talking.
The other thing is that, look, I've had many bets that have been worse than this one on this thing. David Hay to knock out fucking Tony Bellew. I've had lots of clangers in my time, but genuinely, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I actually never placed the bet, which probably puts me in a better mood than I should be in.
Beep,
but
beep. That's the truck.
No reversing going on. No reversing going on. All I'm going to say is that what nobody else has brought up here is that the fourth judge has given it to Eubank. So, shove that up your arse, Jay, huh?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Finally, some proper judging. Finally, some proper non-judging in the UK, huh? Finally, some proper judging.
Bring Paul in to bring a bit of integrity back.
Let me do just that. Thank you, Jay, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Paul, let's get you on, mate. Give us a sound check. How you doing?
I'm good. How am I coming through? All right?
Yeah, loud and clear, mate. How long do we have you for?
Yeah, I'll probably be here to the end now. Should be here to the end now.
Good stuff. Paul, we've gone round the panel. Reaction from Jet, from Surrey. Reaction from Irish Tom. which was quite revealing. Jay obviously celebrating his correct pick. Let's get your take on this fight, and your sort of abiding memories looking back at it.
Well, I mean, I just think, they when a young man rises to the top, they're just queuing up to fucking drag him down, and I'm just disgusted at clear future Hall of Famer here that was just clearly robbed on the weekend. It was just awful, worst robbery I've ever seen, man. I assume that's what you've all been talking about, yeah?
I think you and Irish Tom must have been watching it on the same dodgy stream.
I actually saw it at my mate's house, and he paid for the pay-per-view. Fucking fantastic.
I haven't been listening, so I don't know what any of you guys have been saying. I've just been in the car traveling back home. But yeah, I mean, look, all the reasons, like, last week we were talking about everybody going back and forth on it. All the reasons why I kept and do you know what? In the week, I nearly did a fucking redo video. Like I did my prediction with Eubank. I fucking nearly did it. It's like, oh no, he's not going to win here. I started thinking about all the reasons, and then I thought, no, I'm going to look like I can't fucking make up my mind. So I didn't, and it was just like, fucking hell, man. He's, you know what? I've got to take my hat off to Jay last week. All the things Jay said last week about, look, we're going to find out about him. We found out. He's not on that level. He's just not on that level. I got it completely and utterly fucking wrong. For me, it was it was a schooling. He couldn't. God, how he was awful. I mean, he was really, really bad. He couldn't get in at all. It's so sloppy, so wild. The output wasn't even there. I mean, I personally thought some of the early shots and he didn't get caught with anything huge early, but I think he felt the difference in power. We talked about it, didn't we? Saying that Groves would inevitably be the biggest puncher he'd ever faced. And I think he felt that power and it made him tentative for the whole fight. And when that's the case, that's the one thing that will expose a lack of fundamental boxing skills. And that was just very, very evident for me. No fundamental skills whatsoever. I thought it was funny, Naz, which screen do I look into to tell him to retire? I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm old enough to remember the beef between Naz and his dad and stuff. So Naz is Naz is still probably pretty salty. A guy with that big of an ego doesn't like being made to look silly, and that was what Eubank Sr. really did with that whole ring jumping the ropes thing with Naz years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, he shouldn't retire, but I think what they will do is they'll just start matching him like they did after the Saunders fight. They'll start putting him in with guys that stand in front of him.
Yeah. You wonder, though, if the public will be so quick to buy into him again next time he steps up to world-class level. I wasn't duped the first time. I was duped the second time. I won't be duped the third time. You wonder if some of that mystique, some of that aura surrounding Eubank and, some of the sort of suggestion about his potential will be very hard to ever get back, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be duped. I can say that for certain. I mean, I watched the Autotext video on the aftermath, and I completely agreed with one thing he said, which was what they'll probably do now is try and bring in a top trainer, and that will be how they'll try and repackage him. Oh, look, he was training himself. Look, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't know if you remember on one of the podcasts, maybe a month ago, we were talking about the fact that he apparently trained himself, didn't have any input, any guidance from the corner, and that could be a potential banana skin. There was no ideas. I mean, I don't think it would have helped because he hadn't. I mean, his level was exposed for me. But they will repackage him, and they'll say, well, he was training himself now. Look at look, now he's got this top trainer, like I don't know, maybe they'll go that they've got some connection with Floyd and stuff, haven't they? They've been over there with him, maybe try and go over there and work with somebody over there and repackage it like that. That's what I think they'll try and do. But for me, if he was 23, 24, it would be a different matter. But the guy's nearly 30 now. Those flaws, that they can't be ironed out before. They can't be ironed out. He's like, the only way he gets to world level again and wins a world title again is if they happen to match him correctly, and it's a guy that is willing to just stand there and come in front, move forward like an Arthur Abraham type sort of champion or whatever, which I'm not sure somebody like that exists. God, can you imagine if he'd have fought Triple G? Can you imagine if that fight had have happened based on what we see just now, the weekend?
Yeah.
He would have got absolutely fucking annihilated by Triple G. Annihilated.
Yeah. Paul, I can't disagree. What about George Groves, mate? Do you think they delay the final, and do you think he wins the World Boxing Super Series?
Yeah. Callum Smith, I'm dubious of. Some of his recent fights he hasn't looked great, and so I think he probably does win it. Do we know yet? We don't know anymore, do we, about how bad the shoulder is, or any kind of estimated length of time he'd be out? I mean,
no, we don't know. There's been a lot of speculation that it's going to be very, very hard for him to make the first week of June, which was the originally intended date. But, I was discussing this with Tom earlier. They've got to delay the final because now Eubank isn't in the tournament. They need to sell a lot of tickets and they need to sell a lot of pay-per-views. And if you don't have a Eubank and you don't have a Groves, I mean, Callum Smith versus a reserve probably sells 500 tickets and 100 pay-per-views. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of business critical for them to have Groves involved, surely.
They'll move it. They'll definitely move it. Because what's the alternative? What, like Eubank goes through by default or something? I mean, I suppose that's not beyond the realms of possibility. I
guess they could do Eubank Callum Smith, couldn't they? But it would be all right. It would be an awful look for the tournament if Chris Eubank Jr. won it.
Yeah, it would be. It really would be. Given the manner of the defeat, it would be, I think. Because, look, he come out of there, I think I did enough to win. This just sort of like plays into what I was saying before, is when you're in the ring. I think he probably thinks that. I think that's probably based largely on ego and a little bit based on the fact that when you're in the ring, you really can't tell if you're beating the shit out of somebody. You can't tell. And so the way he lost, very bad look for it. I don't think they're going to want to do that because it's been rather a success, hasn't it?
Yes.
The cruiserweights have looked great. They're going to have an undisputed cruiserweight champion out of it, which is a nice storyline for the brand, I guess. And yeah, I think it would be a bad look for it, but I guess not beyond the realms of possibility. I don't want to see that though, to be completely honest.
Yeah, no, I personally would rather they delay it, and I may be talking from my pocket a little bit here because I have bet on Bramer, but I actually also agree with Irish Tom that I would rather they delayed Callum Smith versus Bramer, especially given that they, have stuck Callum Smith in with a kickboxer. I'd rather they delay Callum Smith versus Bramer rather than, let that substandard fight go ahead. And especially with Groves needing a delay for the final, it would seem there'd be a possibility to delay that Bramer fight. But obviously, that's not going to happen. I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Paul. Let me ask, anyone on the panel have anything they want to add about the Naseem Hamed comments? I didn't ask all of you. Some of you raised them. I know that's been a big discussion point. So before we move it on, was there anyone who wanted to get in on that?
Yep. I just think I was there watching it with two mates, and the fight didn't live up to that. But afterwards, we were just like fucking roaring, laughing. Everybody thought like Naz was literally the best thing about the entire night. He's fucking brilliant, and I would like to see him on everything. You could see the fucking both guys he was there were trying to shut him up, trying to tell him, don't ruin it, don't let the common man who doesn't know boxing let them know that Junior is shite. It was fucking brilliant, and he's a legend. Naz is like a fucking legend, and I would love to see him on things. Did you see Eddie? I think I saw an Eddie Hearn IFL interview today. I don't know why the fuck I watched it, but they were saying, "Oh, would you get Naz on?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought he was great." And then you could see he was like thinking, "God, there's no fucking way he's getting on my fucking channel."
Let me ask though, because the Naz comments were quite funny, but was he literally just tearing into someone, A, for his own humour, or B, kind of for the sake of it? Whilst it was a bit funny, it possibly wasn't the best boxing analysis. That's my take on it.
But I'm with Irish. I think it was great that he did. Look, I don't agree that Eubank Jr. should retire. I think that's probably going a bit too far. But I love that Naz was just like he was the kind of like antithesis to the company man. It's just like the total like not the company man at all, which I just loved. I got to admit,
I hear you. But say someone got on Sky. Say if anyone got on Sky.
He won't. They won't have him back on.
No, I know. But say any person got on Sky, right?
Yeah.
Whoever it was, just some random boxer got on Sky and was given a commentator's job, and he looked dead into the camera and went on a 1 minute long rant about how bad at boxing Paul Smith is, and swore about Paul Smith. I can guarantee instantaneously there'd be 100,000 tweets on Twitter saying this guy is the best analyst ever. We need him on every boxing channel ever. We love him, etc. What I'm getting at is, yes, there was an element of humour there, but was it actually clever boxing analysis? No. Was it just him tearing an unpopular figure to get a laugh? Probably.
No. I don't think that's.
Eubank did expose himself for not being on the same level, and that was pretty much what he was saying. To that extent, he was right. I mean, you're probably not going to hear that from any of the other commentators, but he was right.
But the thing is, as well, is that with Naz, you got to think about it. Like Naz went for Eubank before the fight. He chose Eubank. It's not like he chose Groves and he was being a hater. So I do think with Naz, a bit of it was disappointment that he had believed in the Eubank hype. And I think some of it was shock at how inept Junior was at certain parts of the game. And remember, when you think about Naz, Naz quit at the height of his powers pretty much. Maybe a little bit past his peak. He lost to Barrera, had one comeback fight and quit. So Naz is looking at it probably from his own point of view, as if I'm not able to be the number one, the best in the world. What's the fucking point? And he's looking at Chris Eubank Jr., looking at him, particularly with his style, thinking all he's going to end up with is fucking brain damage. Because his style, when he goes up against the top level guys, he's just going to get a hammering. If he, his style is set up that, he can only win by taking a shellacking against the top level fighters. Even if he was in against a top level come forward fighter, he'd still have to take a beating to win that fight. So, I think Hamed is saying it from his own personal point of view too. And look, I don't know if anybody else, I don't think anybody else mentioned the panel. I missed the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the show. But I was thinking with a round to go or 2 rounds even to go, I thought that fight could have been stopped. I think there's a lot of bullshit talk by the Eubanks about the Warrior Code and all this pish. like Chris Eubank Jr. was taking an absolute beating in that, and he was fucked, and he had hardly anything left. And like nearly all of the tragedies we've seen in the ring in British boxing over the years has nearly always been in the super middleweight division, because these guys are hit hard enough to do damage, and they've got fitness enough. They're not too heavy. They can hit you a lot. So like, I think that Chris Eubank is on to like a height, and just because your father has like his father never took such a beating as he took in that fight. I don't think. I can't ever remember it.
I don't think Junior could have been stopped in that fight. I really don't. And do you know what? This may be a very unpopular thing I'm about to say, but I am going to say it. I picked Eubank Jr. to win. I'm actually a George Groves fan. Like, after the first 7 or 8 rounds, I was enjoying what I was watching, and I was hoping that George Groves stayed on to win. I was worried that Groves would have his usual last quarter of the fight collapse, and that he may still be vulnerable late. And I was hoping that didn't happen, because I wanted the guy who'd shown the supreme boxing to emerge victorious. In that 12th round, albeit with an injury, I was actually concerned that George Groves was on the verge of getting stopped. And if you rewatch the last, I'm not saying he was devastated hurt. I'm not saying he ever looked like he was going to get knocked unconscious. If you rewatch the last 20 or 30 seconds, where Eubank's really pressing the pace and Groves is one-armed, I thought Groves was in a dangerous position. And if you look at McGuigan in the corner, and if you see the footage of McGuigan in the corner in the documentary the World Boxing Super Series released called The Day After, you can see that McGuigan was equally as concerned. My take, and I think Groves won the fight. I think Groves won it clearly, was by far the better fighter. But frankly, I think Groves was closer to getting stopped than Eubank, as controversial as that is.
Well, the thing is, I disagree with you there, because like you watch those flurries, when you're watching it, you're going, oh my God. But then when you see the replay, Eubank throws 7 punches and they all miss. He's throwing haymakers. Like they're coming from his feet. And Groves, even though he's fucked, he's ducking and he's diving, and Eubank's only landing 1 or 2 out of 8 punches.
And
Groves
Groves was connecting with one arm
with his uppercut. And the better
he gets, though, Groves. I mean, this is why he got stopped in the first Frotz fight. Whether he's actually vulnerable or not, the visual impression he gives in that ring is that he looks very, very, very vulnerable. And he shows that routinely. We even saw it up against Martin Murray. In that last 30 seconds with the injury, in the corner, backed up, the way he was holding himself in there, I thought he looked in real trouble. Although I would agree with your comments that when you watch the replays and slow it down, maybe Eubank wasn't actually landing. But, I don't actually think the best Eubank Jr.
The best punches in the 12th round were George Groves' uppercut. He actually really hurt Eubanks. So, like, even when he was under severe pressure, and he was, but he's a dislocated shoulder. What are you going to do? He had so many points racked up. He could have taken a knee. That the ref is not stopping that in the last 10, 20 seconds. I don't think. It'll be. He would get rode out of town. But I think Eubank took an awful beating in that fight, a real beating. He might never be. People take big beatings like that. Never see him. Chris Eubank. It's amazing to me as well, because look, people slagging like Chris Eubank Sr. for the problems of Junior. Maybe there is some to it, but I think it's vastly overstated. Look at somebody like Chris Eubank Sr. He was a boxer, right? He was a good boxer, Chris Eubank Sr. That's how he went in against, Nigel Benn. He was the boxer. He outboxed him. He timed him. He beat him up. Like, to think that Eubank can't teach his son how to feint is retarded. Like, feint in boxing 101. How can Junior not know how to feint? That cannot be Chris Eubank Sr.'s fault.
I think this is the thing when Nazim said, give it up, because unless he wants to be a British European champion, then he should give it up, because he's never going to be a world champion, because he, like Irish Tom was saying, his dad was a boxer. His dad was a good boxer, and he was not a pressure fighter. He didn't throw a lot of punches, his dad, but his timing was very, very good, and his footwork was very, very good. And I think that by Nazim saying, Prince Nazim saying, who was a very, very, very good fighter, a world champion, and basically saying, look, you know, he ain't got it. He hasn't got it. He hasn't got the ability to be a world champion, and he hasn't. If he fought a Truax, like he's calling out cleverly, yeah, then he could be a world champion. But to be a top-end elite fighter, he will never be that. Never. It's too late. He should have done it 15 years ago when he was learning to box. And you cannot turn him now into some. He's just not a natural boxer. He's not.
Well, I don't know if he's not natural, Jay, as in like. I think someone like him, you know, take out his personality and his stubbornness. Like, he has all the physical and athletic capabilities to learn. You know, it's just like, it's like in any sport. It's like learning a first touch or something. You know, it's just.
But it's something to do, isn't it? Years and years and years ago.
But,
at 28,
but Jay,
29 years old.
But
I don't think.
But is feinting not one of the most obviously easiest boxing skills to learn? Just to move your head a little bit.
Of course, but
you know, like
sure, throughout his times going to different gyms and sparring and watching other people, even if he's not having a trainer around him, but literally watching people, he would learn to pick that up himself. He would think, oh, well, I should do that a little bit. But he's so like one-dimensional and so tunnel visioned that I just don't think he takes any, or he's so arrogant that he doesn't take anything else on board. And what he thinks works for him, that has worked for him, he thinks he's going to work every time, and it's not. And Prince Nazim saying, like, you've either got it or you ain't, you know, and to a certain extent, that's true. You know, Martin Murray, Tony Bellew, good fighters, good heart, you know, good mentality. But then you've got like a Roy Jones Jr. or a Prince Nazim or a Billy Joe Saunders that have just got a natural gift to be a great fighter. Do you know what I mean? They're not. It's very organic. It's not. You know. Do you know what I mean? It's not taught as such. It's just a very natural thing.
Yeah, like it's kind of startling that. Like, I was amazed in the first couple of rounds. Like, from, you know, Junior is stuck between styles. He somehow thinks he's slick. He does, and in himself, I think he likes to do fancy things and thinks he's slick, but yet he's completely not slick in a conventional sense that's effective. And
it's funny because
he's not a marauding front foot fighter, even though that would suit his style and his attributes.
So he's kind of changed, because if you watch him in his early career, he was very reminiscent of his dad in certain ways. You know, the way he controlled himself, the way he stood off, the way he come in, blah blah blah, blah, and then he'd be back out again. But he's changed. This marauding style, this thought that he's got into his head has sort of taken over him. Because if you watched in his early fights, he didn't put on as much pressure. He wasn't continuous. It was short, sharp bursts, in, out, in, out. Now he doesn't seem to do that. Now it seems to be just as many as he can and just maraud the opponent. So I think he's sort of adapted and started to believe in his own hype of being this certain type of fighter.
One thing I would say as well, like for anybody to change anything, it's like it's well known, like in addiction and stuff like that. For you to sort of like change anything fundamental about yourself, you need to understand that there's a problem. From what I can see, he doesn't. So like even all of this talk about can he sort of like, can he change? Can he not? Is he too old? Blah blah blah. The kid came out of the fight and said he thought he won it. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't think he wants. He needs to change. So like none of that shit's going to happen anyway. You know? Yeah.
And the other thing I've been listening to Hatman, and he's been going on that Eubank Jr. show, and I think there is also something to that. I think that when you saw he choked. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think that in the first couple of rounds, even before they got into the ring, in his face, his demeanor, he wasn't looking confident. And
I did say that last week. You see, George Groves had been on the biggest stage possible. He's fought at Wembley Stadium. This is the first. There was a lot of pressure on Chris Eubank, but it's pressure that he's designed himself and that his father has designed himself. You know, if you're gonna put yourself out there and say this, that, and the other, you better step up and do it. But under the lights, it's completely different.
Yeah, and
he got hit with a jab in the first round, and also sort of Groves was sort of like mauling them a little bit in the clinches and stuff, and I just think he kind of like was quite surprised by how sort of big Groves was, how strong Groves was, and whatnot, and how much harder he hits than he's used to. And I think maybe there is something in him choking. I think that might be a reason. He started trying to say, "Oh, like, you know, when you've got blood running into your eye, and all of that, like." The blood wasn't running into his eye. You could see it in all the close-ups, like right up until the end. It wasn't close enough to the eye to be making that much of a difference. You know, he was looking for excuses like almost immediately, which I didn't like. I had a bit more respect for the old man, because there was this thing in the changing rooms where they showed it in that program you mentioned a bit ago, Tom, where with the day after and whatnot, where like they're saying, he's saying like, did you think I won and all of that, and like nobody wants to answer, and the dad went, I think the decision was the right decision, and said it in the press conference as well. I'm no fan of Eubank Jr. I think he's a wanker, but I had a little bit of respect for him for that he was at least honest. Junior just seemed like oblivious. He's fucking delusional. You know?
Yeah. We kind of discussed that a bit earlier, and I agree with what you're saying there, Paul. But my take remains: whilst I give credit to Senior for being realistic at the end, I take that credit away for the corner work. How could he allow his son to get to the end of the fight thinking that he'd won? You know, you'd want to be telling him this from the early stages of the fight. But
yeah, that's a very good point. You know how I feel on that anyway. I think fighters should always be told the truth in the corner, regardless of anything else. I think Junior is one of these sort of like big ego figures that probably can't be told anything, and maybe his dad just knows that, and hoped he would just pull it out of the bag, hoped that he would turn up the pressure and knock him out. I think that was what he was probably hoping for. One thing I would say though is, if I was if I was the Eubanks and I wanted to take any kind of positive out of it, I know it's difficult. He's definitely got a decent chin. You know, like
he's got a decent chin. Yeah. He is. He's a. You just wonder though. Like I spoke about this after the fight, but what's he done? He's gone straight back into the gym and started putting pad work on Instagram the day afterwards. You know. He didn't need to be back in the gym the next day. He didn't need to be doing the same drills. You know, it wasn't a lack of fitness that cost him that. It was other things, and it's frustrating.
Oh, he needed to be sitting in a room on his own, fucking away from the cameras, away from Instagram, watching the fucking fight and figuring out how he's going to move forward. Like,
totally.
But this is kind of like what I was sort of like saying anyway. Like, it's the way he has sort of like come out of this attitude wise tells me there's very much doubt, unless he does some sort of soul search, and I very much doubt any changes are going to be made. They'll just try and match him against, you know, really cleverly, match him cleverly in moving forward, and try and get another Reynold Quinlan type opponent and try and cash in on him a little bit. That's what I think they'll do, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, very possibly. On a slightly different note, but a related note, is anyone else absolutely digging George Groves' ring entrance? I think it's one of the best ring entrances in boxing at the minute.
I prefer Eubanks.
Do you?
No, I love George Groves all the way. That was a brilliant entrance.
I love how he kind of walks to the ring like at such a pace as well. It looks like he's proper pumped.
His pose at the end was amazing, and Shane
holding
up the belt.
That was good as well.
Well, I was afraid that when he runs to the ring that fast, he was going to do a Monty Barrett and fucking fall on the way in.
Good stuff. Let me talk about next weekend. Obviously, we've kind of alluded to it as the pod's gone on. The Jürgen Bremer fight is off, which is unfortunate. Callum Smith is fighting, and apologies to the gentleman in question if he's listening. Nieki Holzken, who is listed as the best super middleweight in the Netherlands, 34 years of age. I'll be completely honest. Out of his 13 fights, all of which he's won, I don't instantly recognize a single one of the opponents he's been in with. 10 KOs out of 13 wins, no knockouts, no draws. I believe he is better regarded as a kickboxer as opposed to a boxer. I don't suppose anyone on the panel has seen or heard from him prior to this?
Nope.
Silence deafening. I understand he was scheduled to fight Fedor Chudinov next time out. So, you know, he wasn't maybe a million miles off getting a fight at this level, but nevertheless, it seems to be a slightly disappointing late replacement, although, you know, I guess it is very, very, very short notice. There's no point me going to the panel asking for predictions here because none of us have seen this guy fight before. None of us have, you know, too much opinion on him. So we'd just be talking for the sake of it. But there is other boxing this weekend. There's the Matchroom Next Gen show on Sunday. To be honest, I've got quite limited interest in that. You know, nothing's jumping out at me from that one as one that I want to get overly stuck into. There's also a card at your call that Frank Warren is hosting on Saturday night, which features Daniel Dubois versus the undefeated Dave Jones, Anthony Yard versus Tony Avalon for the WBO European Light Heavyweight title and WBO Intercontinental Light Heavyweight title, Zelfa Barrett versus Ronnie Clark, which is probably the standout fight from that card. I saw Ronnie Clark in the flesh. I was ringside when he fought Martin Ward last year, and he's a semi-capable operator. You've also got names like Nathan Gorman, Boy Jones Jr., Ryan de Piranha Garner on the undercard. So a few of the Frank Warren prospects. So, yeah, will any of you... I won't go around the entire panel, but anyone going to be keeping their eyes on that, and anyone got any opinions on any of the fights?
I'll watch it simply because it's boxing, but...
Sorry, Paul, go on.
No, go on, Jack.
No, the Superfly 2's card is also on, mate.
Oh, is it? Yeah, that shows my casualness that I've missed it. Talk us through that, Jet.
Rungvisai is fighting...
Estrada, right?
Estrada in the main event. Quadras is fighting Williams Arroyo. Brian Viloria is fighting Dalakian. I think that's for the WBA flyweight title, though. And Nietes is fighting Reveco. So, yeah, there's two solid fights. I think the Viloria fight might be fairly decent. He said he's going to move up to Superfly if he wins the WBA belt. So, yeah, that's not too bad. Well, you know the Sky Bill, I think Lewis Ritson's fighting Joe Murray, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So that's not too bad a fight. I expect Ritson to win that, but it's not too bad a fight. But yeah, not the vintage weekend of boxing. I think Jojo Diaz is fighting tomorrow as well, actually.
Okay, so there's little bits and pieces of boxing all in all.
Who's Jojo Diaz fighting, Jack?
Victor Terrazas. He's like a former WBC champion, so he's got like 8 losses or something on his record, but he should come out with the win. He's a fairly good fighter. I think he's kind of fallen victim of Gary Russell Jr.'s inactivity. So yeah, hopefully
tomorrow.
So yeah, that's tomorrow, mate. Yeah, that's tomorrow. That's on ESPN2 or something like that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I like Jojo Diaz.
Good stuff. Yeah. Bits and pieces. I'm going to check out Ronnie Clark's Alpha Barrett, definitely. And I always watch the Bois and Yard. They're very, very good prospects, even though it appears they're in against overmatched opponents. Let me just ask before. Well, I need to run off at at the usual time tonight, I'm afraid, because I've got some work to attend to, unfortunately, even at this late hour. But let me just ask you guys briefly about a chap who really caught my eye on the undercard of Eubank Groves. And it's a person who I've mentioned before on this channel. But has anyone taken a look at the prospect Zach Parker just yet?
Seen a little bit of him, yeah.
I think he's really exciting. I think he is quite possibly the #1 prospect in British boxing at present. What's your take on him, Jet, from what you've seen?
Yeah, he's fairly handy. He's actually fairly good. He's not too shabby. I think obviously he's in against overmatched opposition, but you know he shows some good fundamentals, and yeah, he's a good fighter from at least the eye test from what we see. But obviously we've got to see him in against better opposition. Hopefully they gradually increase the level of opposition and, you know, just give him tougher opponents and see how he comes along. But yeah, he looks fairly handy. There's a fair good few prospects in Britain coming along. So he's definitely up there, I guess.
Definitely. Guys, okay. Let me, I can see Irish Tom has fallen off. Let me throw it out there to the panel. We've made relatively good pace. Is there anything else that anyone wants to throw into the mix? Any other fighters, news topics that you want to just mention tonight?
Benavidez at the weekend.
Oh yeah, against Gavril, wasn't it?
Yeah. Really exceptional.
Danny Garcia
as well.
Benavidez really exceptional. Addressed the mistakes in the first fight with Gavril. Looked really composed, fought off the jab really well. Come inside, hit the jab, then took a couple of steps back out of reach. Just control, just a really good, mature, level-headed performance compared to the last one. So big shout out to him. Look really, really good. Garcia, Rios, well, what can you say? I mean, that division, no one's. I mean, everyone seems to be avoiding the man himself, Errol Spence. Everyone's calling each other out, but no one seems to mention him. Danny Garcia he was all right, but he wasn't great. Rios, we know everything about Rios, don't we? You know, he shouldn't be boxing anymore. Should have given up a long time ago. Struggles with the weight, etc., etc. Was better than I thought he would be. Put in a better performance than I thought he would do, but still, you know, wasn't great. And it'd be interesting to see, you know, who will actually have the balls to take on Errol Spence. And what other was another fight? Oh, Devin Alexander was fighting, wasn't he? But I didn't catch that.
Yeah, that was a draw, but the consensus
that's right.
He was unlucky.
Right, okay. Well, there's a funny fight, really. That was, you know, I think I listed somewhere they said that, you know, 3 or 4 years ago that'd have been a top fight, you know. But those two guys really have sort of dropped down the levels and not really sure where, you know, where both of them go from that position. Especially after a draw.
Yeah. No, I guess they'll have to put on a rematch, won't they? In all likelihood,
is a rematch that anyone wants to see again, though. I mean, it was a pretty decent fight, but it was, you know, it's not two names that really set the world alight, to be honest with you. But I think the highlight for me was definitely Benavidez was just really good, you know, and he's been boxing since he was 16 years old, that guy. Made his debut at 16 and only had 25 amateur fights, apparently, so it said. So even more exceptional. He's a very precocious talent and someone that I know that Irish Tom absolutely loves. So, yeah, you know, really excited to see where he's going to go from here.
Yeah, I want to second that on Benavidez. I mean, look, I was another one that was hyping up Benavidez after the Porky Medina win. Thought he looked exceptional in the Porky Medina fight. And last week we were kind of like saying like there was I think it was Irish was saying that he apparently Benavidez was sick before the first Gavril fight. I mean, I watching that rematch, I can absolutely believe it. He was so much better. Tom, did you see that one? I know you saw the first Gavril fight.
I haven't watched it, mate. No, I've got to be honest. I've got real doubts about Benavidez, but maybe I need to.
To be honest,
he was exceptional, mate.
Yeah, the first fight with Gavril, it seemed he got involved too much, and his heart took over his head so much. and that, you know, the occasion got to him and the height, whatever it was, but he was forcing it and he was getting involved. It was like a complete polar opposite performance that you saw at the weekend. The weekend, it was punch perfect. He controlled that fight from start to finish.
Yeah, he did.
The distance was exceptional.
Did
The jab was exceptional.
Fight, Jay?
Pardon?
Did you see the Porky Medina fight?
I did, yeah. But even from that fight, he looks like he's just matured overnight. He's just like someone's got hold of him and gone, no, look, you know, when you're in those positions, you've got the ability, which he has the ability. He's got the size, he's got the athletic capabilities to control fights, and he controlled that fight. So he made it look so easy compared to the first fight.
He's very quick as well. Very quick hands.
Deceivingly, I think, though. I think he's one of those fighters that are deceivingly quick.
Yeah.
I look at him and think he's not that quick, but that jab, fabulous.
That jab's ridiculous.
Yeah.
His jab's better than George Groves' jab.
Yeah. He's
the best middleweight in the world already.
I'd say he's not far off. He's just ability to manage distance was really good. That's what really impressed me, because he jab, and then he'd go for a 1-2, and then instantly he'd take 2 steps back and just go out of range and then start again. You know, just showed real quality, real world-class quality.
I mean, I'll have to give him a look again, because every time we've heard about him on this podcast, it's been that he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And every time I've seen him, I've thought he looks okay.
You saw that one Gavril fight. I mean, if you think about it, like a year ago, we were all saying James DeGale was the consensus top super middleweight in the world. Obviously, he's not now. But if you look at the way DeGale dealt with Porky Medina, that was war. Yeah, Benavidez just destroyed him. Honestly, I think if you watch the Porky Medina fight and this rematch, Gavril, in which he looked even better, I think, you know me, I'm not like the kind of person to kind of like start, you know, saying people the second coming before it's time. I really do think Benavidez is up there. He's there or thereabouts for that super middleweight division. He's a special talent, man. He really is.
Well, I mean,
I really like Ramirez. You know, I think he's kind of the forgotten man.
Well, if you kind of look at that top 10, I think Ramirez, you're definitely right there. I think then you're looking at George Groves. If you look at the Ring Magazine top 10, you're looking at Ramirez, Groves, Smith, Eubank Jr., Truax, DeGale, Durrell, Anthony Durrell, Benavidez, and Jurgen Bremer. Now, really, I don't look at any of those fighters, really, that I don't think Benavidez can't beat now.
I completely agree.
You know, I think he could beat George Groves. I think Ramirez would be tough, because I think he's probably the number one. But Cam Smith he beats, Truax he beats, DeGale I think he's going to give him problems after the last performance. He beats both Durrells and he beats Bremer. So, you know, I don't see anyone else really that could really, you know, bar Ramirez. That you know, that's probably the best fight in the division.
Yeah, I think him and Ramirez is the only really kind of like competitive fight. I think James DeGale is kind of like a bit sharp, to be completely honest.
I think we've got to see how DeGale comes back, really, though. I think I don't think we can take much from that last performance, personally.
Yeah, I'm prepared to give DeGale one more chance, but yeah, based on that last performance, he isn't even a top 20 super middleweight.
I think that's complacency, overconfidence on his part. That was, to be honest, I think that was a Billy Joe Saunders in Aberdeen performance.
Yeah,
I really do. He's so much better than that. You can't literally go from one fight to another to being atrocious. You know, it just no one falls off the wagon that quickly. I think there was an overconfidence, maybe problems in training camp, maybe problems with Jim McDonald. There was something there that wasn't right. That was not James DeGale that we saw out there that night.
But I mean, you've got to also take into account that he was off for quite a while. He's had a few injuries. There's the Badu Jack effect. Badu Jack, you know, like I think that fight took a bit out of him as well. I'm not so sure. He could be a one-off. It could be the Billy Joe Saunders type of thing. But Akavov fight, and you know, if looking at that, you'd think Billy Joe Saunders was finished, and that's clearly not the case. So you might be right. I do think the Badu Jack fight and a couple of his other fights have taken a bit out of him, and
yeah, but I'd you know what? I'd understand it if it was an average fighter that had pulled out some great performances, and then all of a sudden we see something atrocious, you know, like a Crawler or someone like that. Do you know what I mean? But because he's so talented and so gifted, that I just really don't think a fighter of that caliber can just go from that to that in such a short space of time, in relative time. You know, I really don't.
I think when a war takes its toll on a fighter, I think how talented they once were is perhaps irrelevant, to be honest, if that's what's happened. But you might be right; it might not be that.
Well, you could say the same thing about George Groves, couldn't you? Really, I mean, he's been in some very, very tough fights, you know. But for me, and I said that I thought George Groves' right hand had got better than it had. Than he was. I think George Groves, though, the thing is with George Groves, he's changed as a fighter. He's developed as a fighter. He no longer relies on certain things, and good fighters can kind of recognise that and then adapt. You know, Floyd Mayweather has did it. David Haye did it to a certain extent. Do you know what I mean? Like, great fighters they don't rely on what they used to do. They kind of refine themselves as they get older. And rely more on other things they hadn't possibly used in the past.
One thing I just thought we'd throw in, guys, before we move towards the close of the show is Andy Lee has announced his retirement today. So I've got lots of good memories watching Andy Lee box over the years. Never maybe... I don't know. He won a world title and defended it several times. But yeah, he was someone I had fond memories of.
Yeah.
Even he maybe didn't have the mega nights that you maybe would have assumed he would have done at one point. But yeah, just wanted to throw that one in there, I guess.
I mean, I'm surprised at that to a certain extent, Tom. Does he say why? You know, was there any reasons?
He
or
basically said he wanted to keep his options open, you know, after the loss to Billy Joe Saunders. And he wanted to hang around the scene for a long time to see what would become available. But, you know, the huge offers and the big money just weren't forthcoming. And he wasn't prepared to leave his wife and kids to go for a training camp away from home for the kind of money he was getting offered, you know, on the comeback.
I think that's very commendable by Andy Lee, to be honest with you, because not many fighters would do that. And he's obviously... If it is, you know, we've heard fighters that have retired before and then come back. But if it is genuine, then, you know, there's a man that's content with what he's done in the game and he's happy to get out with faculties intact and a few quid in the bank. So, yeah, you got to give him respect for that. I'm surprised because I do think there was a bit left in him, but, you know, fair play to him.
Yeah, presumably he had some good earning potential, you know, still left in him, but hopefully he'd earned some decent money throughout his career in boxing. You know, it's kind of, you look at his resume, it's kind of hard to know how much he actually earned over the days. But with Andy Lee, you know, there was this period. So he fought John Jackson in 2014, and I thought he was getting a bit of a beating in that fight, but he found a one-punch knockout to get himself out of jail. Yeah. The same thing kind of happened with Korobov, you know, which was his next fight. I thought he was getting outboxed and he found a one-punch knockout. Then there was the Peter Quillen fight where I think the majority would say Quillen probably got the better of it. And then there was the Billy Joe Saunders loss. So maybe he was someone who was coming to the end of his career actually from about 2014. But because he had that power still in him, you know, he was able to get a few more big fights that most other fighters wouldn't be able to rattle off. I don't know. But yeah, he's not a hugely old guy. I think he's only 33 years old or something of that nature. So, you know, there were still a few more fights in him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think, you know, and he's saying he had a fight in Madison Square Garden last March. Yeah. So, you know, maybe he didn't get the deal that he wanted, but, you know, he fought Quillen. Korobov was a good fight, lost to Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
You know, but not massive fights. I can see what he's saying. Where did he make the money, really? Because, You know, between the Chavez fight and the Quillen fight, really, there was no real big names there for him, and never really fought on, you know, on a big stage as such. Really, Madison Square Garden once, you know, MEM, but against a no one. So it's interesting. It's interesting. But there's a man that's you know, that, as I said, he's happy with what he's done in boxing, and fair play to him, because, you know, perhaps more boxers should take a note out of his book.
I mean, I like to think I've got to agree. I say fair play to him. I like to think that if I like was in one of these guys' positions, that, you know, we say haven't made a lot of money, but we're still talking about more money than the average. You know, more money than like a plumber or a guy that works at KFC is going to make. And with you know, if you've got the presence of mind to sort of like manage your money well and make, you know, clever investments and whatnot, I don't think you necessarily have to have massive fights. You know, and if that's what he's done, and like you say, you know, faculties intact and whatnot, fair play to him, man. Enjoy you know, enjoy whatever life you've built for yourself, rather than, you know, what I wouldn't like to see. I don't like to see any sort of fighter you know, talking like James Toney or Riddick Bowe, where you can't understand what they're saying. That would be, for me, would be infinitely worse. So, you know,
I mean, we never get tired of seeing pictures of Marcus Madonna. Well, I don't anyway. I saw one today, and, you know, there's this round, fat bloke, you know, drinking a double brandy, having a cigar in his garden. You know, I love to see him, because, you know, there's a guy that just went, I've had enough. I hate my job, but I've earned big money from a couple of Mayweather fights, so I'm out of it. And yeah, fair play to him.
Absolutely. Gents, we seem to have lost Surrey during the course of the last discussion or so down to the four musketeers. I've got to go in relatively short order, I'm afraid, but let me ask, anything more to throw into the mix before we call it a night?
I wanted to say on the welterweights, did anybody see the little bit of a confrontation between Sean Porter and Keith Thurman?
Oh, I don't care about that. That's bollocks, man. Who wants to see that rematch?
I don't know. I'd like to see the rematch, actually.
I mean, it was a good fight, but I think, you know, Thurman should win it if he's got anything left. Porter is that sort of level. He should be beaten, you know, by the top guys. He's very one-dimensional. And
he's very good at that one dimension, though, isn't he? He's very educated.
Yeah. I mean, Porter. Yeah.
Somebody told me on the weekend they think the fighter that Porter is most like is Chris Eubank Jr. And I think there is some similarity there, actually. They're both guys who look absolutely devastating when they face lower level opposition. They're both guys who are very good at one thing but don't necessarily have a plan B or a plan C. And they're both guys who just get outboxed at the top level but perform with credit and durability, you know, and they both have that same sort of presser, high output style as well.
I've got to disagree. I mean, for me, Sean Porter's levels above Chris Eubank Jr. For me, Chris Eubank Jr. didn't really perform with credit at the weekend, certainly. And, you know, the Saunders fight was closer, but I think Porter's way more educated in the way he goes about his work. I thought the Thurman fight was razor close, actually, and it was a great fight, and I'd like to see it again. I think the comparison with Chris Eubank Jr. is a bit, I don't know about that.
Maybe in terms of styles is more, I agree. Porter is probably a slightly higher level version, but I think in terms of their limitations and in terms of their styles, they're probably comparable in certain ways, I guess. But yeah, I agree though. It was a good fight with Thurman and it was a close fight. Kind of feel like with Keith, he's lost so much momentum in his career. He should be going on to be a superstar. You know, he should be going on to the biggest fights in the sport. And I kind of feel after losing all that momentum, to see him fight 2 back-to-back rematches is just not really the direction I want to see him go in. But yeah, you know, I can't hate on the Porter fight specifically, I guess.
No, I mean, I kind of agree. I'd prefer to see Thurman Spence, but I personally I don't think Thurman really wants to fight Spence. I think a lot of them don't seem to want to fight Spence when we're all calling each other out and they're all like saying each other's names. You seem to. I've noticed that they don't seem to want to talk about Spence too much. Not his name that's getting called out, is it? None of them seem to be sort of like doing that. They seem to be sort of like keeping it within the confines of each other and leaving the big chap alone, I think.
This is it. Yeah. He seems to be. He's kind of taken on that number one in the division role, really. You know, in Spence, in Furman's absence, and with Brook, you know, taking a bit of a loss, and you know, all of these sort of things. He seems to have taken on that number one, and he's kind of viewed as a bit of a ferocious fighter at this stage, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's a lump, isn't he, at welterweight as well? I think, you know, I think he is taking on that. I mean, it's nowhere near the same level, but almost like Triple G was at one point, kind of like, you know, like people starting to sort of like view him as a bit of a bogeyman type of thing.
Yeah. Be very, very interesting to see how his career develops. He needs to stay active, and he needs to, you know, continue building his stardom and not let his career be blighted by inactivity, is my take.
I mean, personally, I think if he's big enough and if the sort of like the weight is okay and he makes the weight okay, Terence Crawford just sort of like probably takes over that division if the size thing, you know, if it's not a step too far. You know, like where did he start? Lightweight? Was it lightweight Crawford started?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, there's still obviously question marks. The Horn fight people are sleeping on a little bit, but Horn's a big lump and aggressive in the way he goes about. I think it will tell us something about Crawford. But I think if Crawford can manage the transition, then he probably takes over that division because skill set wise, for me, just on another level to anybody in that division.
Yeah. Whether Spence will stay at welterweight or whether to light middleweight is probably a question for another day. But if that fight ever does happen, it would be one of the most mouth-watering classes in boxing. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to wrap it up there for the week, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, though, for your time and for your thoughts and views and opinions on all things boxing. I'll finish by giving Jay another little virtual round of applause for his pick last week. You know, I think you've sowed Irish Tom, who's boss, definitely. So credit goes to you there. Many thanks to everyone who's been tuning in since the start and who's joined throughout. We've had a new subscriber or two jump on as we've been live, so welcome to those people. Thank you to everyone who hit the thumbs up button. We've up to 88. Please continue to do that, even if you're watching this after it's been uploaded to the channel. And yeah, other than that, I will wrap it up for the week and say look forward to being back on next week, hopefully at the same time. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Ta-ra, ta-ra.
Thanks, everyone.